The air was thick with incense, its oily smoke clinging to my throat as though it wished to choke me before the Emperor's servants could. The bells of the cloister tolled with a leaden slowness, each strike reverberating not only in the stone but in my bones, hollowing them like vessels prepared for filling. I lay in the stone cell, my fingers tracing the cold surface of the wall, the grit of consecrated ash falling onto my skin from the cracked mortar. The only light seeped through slits above, where day was a pallid smear and night a heavier shroud. It was neither dawn nor dusk. Time was meaningless here, swallowed by devotion. I should have felt sanctity, but all I felt was the weight of ash pressing into me. Ash from burned offerings, ash from the pyres of the penitent, ash from those who gave everything so that their names might be erased and replaced with his. The scent was sharp, acrid, yet beneath it lay a sweetness, a sickening perfume of bodies too long burned and too eagerly sanctified. They told me I was chosen. They told me my resistance was proof of my unworthiness, and in unworthiness I would prove my worth. That is the cruelty of the creed. No matter how you recoil, the nails are driven deeper. I remember the first litany I mouthed here, barely awake from the lashes that purified my tongue of heresy. My lips formed words, but my heart spat venom. Why? I asked in silence, even as I whispered, for the Emperor. Why should he demand my blood? Why should he require so much from the smallest of us? The sisters who guard the cloister speak little, though their silence is louder than sermons. Their armor clinks like chains in the halls, and their visors hide their eyes, so I can never tell whether they watch me with pity or contempt. Sometimes I think I hear their breaths catching, as if they too doubt. Sometimes I think I hear whispers when they leave. Whispers not from human throats, but from the cracks between worlds. The silence of the Emperor is heavy. He speaks only through suffering, through the branding irons, through the nails driven into the palms of martyrs who die in his name. I have heard no voice but theirs, echoing down the long halls, cries stretched into hymns. And yet I am told this silence is love. I cling to my defiance like a ragged cloak. It does not warm me, but it keeps me mine. If I surrender it, I fear I will cease to exist entirely, subsumed into the mass of faceless penitents. Already, I see their shadows on the walls, shapes bent in prayer, features erased by devotion. They frighten me more than the sisters, for they are too serene, too hollow. The rituals grow more invasive. Yesterday, they bound my wrists with iron etched in sigils. The cold bit deep, and every shiver of my body was called proof of faith. They anointed my brow with oils that stung like acid, and when I cried out, they smiled. You resist because you are weak, one said. But weakness is what the Emperor loves to break. I wished to strike her, but my arms were bound, and besides, would striking her not prove her right? At night, I hear the scratching in the stone. At first I thought it rats, but then I realized it was not in the wall, it was in me. In my marrow, in the hollow my prayers were carving. Something scuttles there, something that whispers when the incense burns low. It tells me I am not his, that I need not be broken. And yet its voice is cold, slick as oil, reeking of promise and betrayal. I press my face to the stone floor, tasting dust and dried blood, remnants of those who kneeled before me. Their devotion is etched into the ground. My lips leave no mark. Perhaps that is my fate, to pass here without trace, to be burned and scattered as ash among billions, indistinguishable. The thought is both a terror and a relief. But then I hear the procession, the tramp of boots, the hum of prayers, the dragging chains. I am lifted from my cell, shoulders bruised beneath the grip of armored gauntlets. The air outside is colder, the wind carrying ash in great sheets across the shrine courtyard. The spires rise like spears, and each one is blackened with soot from endless sacrifices. Above them looms the sky, a void streaked with dying light, as though the sun itself resists its duty. We march into the chapel, vast enough to swallow cities. Its vaults echo with chants that never cease, layered so heavily they sound more like machinery than human voices. Candles gutter in iron racks, their wax running like tears down the effigies of saints. The Emperor's golden form towers above, not alive, not dead, neither warm nor cold. His eyes are empty sockets of light, and when I look into them, I feel them hollow me further. They place me before the altar, upon stone that still bears the scorch marks of the last martyr. I smell burnt flesh, sharp as iron and sweet as rot. I know it will be my smell soon enough. The Sister Superior leans close. Her voice is low, measured, as if carved from stone. You are to suffer. You are to resist. In resistance, you will shatter. In shattering, you will serve. Her visor reflects my face, pale, streaked with sweat and ash. I look into that mirrored mask and see not myself, but an absence. I want to scream. I want to curse the Emperor, curse this shrine, curse the entire Imperium. But the words die, caught in the throat by fear, or perhaps by faith, though I cannot tell the difference anymore. And so I kneel. The stone cuts into my skin, and the incense clogs my breath. The bells toll again, each strikes slower, heavier, as though counting down. My hands tremble as they clasp together, more from anger than reverence. I close my eyes, and in the darkness behind my lids, the whispers stir again. You need not burn for him, they say. But still my lips move. Still, I mouth the words, for the Emperor. The weight of ash settles deeper into me, pressing, suffocating, until I no longer know whether I resist or simply yield beneath it. And tomorrow, they will call me closer still. The chains are cold, yet they burn. Each link has been steeped in sacred oils, their surfaces etched with wards older than memory. When they drape them over me, I feel the weight not only in flesh but in spirit, as if each iron loop binds my thoughts more securely than my limbs. The rattle of the chains fills the chapel, louder than the hymns, louder than the scraping chants. The sound burrows into me, a music of imprisonment. The scent of incense is stronger today, thicker, cloying. It mixes with the acrid tang of the oils they smear across my chest, a mixture that stings open cuts and burns deeper than any lash. My skin is raw, slick with sanctified torment. I taste copper in the back of my throat, though I have not bitten my tongue. Blood lingers in the air here. It is woven into every stone. I once thought chains were for criminals, for heretics, for those who transgressed against the Imperium's will. Now I see them as adornments, as symbols of devotion. The sisters do not bind me because I am wicked. They bind me because I must be remade. That is their cruelty and their devotion. They believe the Emperor's love is not warm, but scalding, love measured in scars, salvation carved into flesh. They recite litanies as they fasten the manacles tighter, the words merging into an endless drone. I hear only fragments. Obedience is freedom. Suffering is purity. Death is service. The words scrape against my thoughts until I begin to repeat them silently, unwilling yet unable to silence their rhythm. I wonder if the first martyr felt as I do now. Did he resist? Did he spit in the face of his tormentors? Or did he collapse into devotion, glad for his suffering to end in flame? The texts say he embraced it willingly. The texts say his ashes birthed the shrine itself. But texts are written by victors, and victors love their lies. The chains dig into my wrists, metal grinding against bone. My fingers twitch involuntarily, my body's rebellion against ritual. A sister notices. Her gauntlet hand strikes me across the face with the precision of habit. My cheek burns, and I taste iron. She says nothing, but the silence speaks volumes. Weakness is punished, resistance acknowledged only with violence. Inside, my thoughts rage. I want to tear the chains apart, to rip the sanctified oil from my skin, to scream that I am no servant but a man. Yet beneath the anger lies something else, fear. Fear that I am too weak to resist forever. Fear that I will eventually bend, as so many have before me, and in that bending, lose myself entirely. The whispers return when the chants fade. Low at first, like embers smoldering in the ashes of my mind. Then clearer, colder, there is no love in chains. Break them, and be free. I clench my jaw. To listen is to invite damnation. That is what the preachers taught me. The warp speaks honeyed poison, and those who hear it are lost. Yet in the silence of the Emperor, the poison feels like truth. Why does he not answer me? Why does he remain hidden, while the shadows speak plainly? The Sister Superior approaches. She carries a brand, its tip glowing with white fire. The heat presses against me even from a distance, a radiance that sears my eyes. My breath catches, my lungs refusing the incense, choking on air that feels already aflame. She lowers the brand to my chest, and the world collapses into fire. The stench of burning flesh floods my senses. It is my flesh. I scream, though the sound is swallowed by chanting. The brand bites deeper, carving his sigil into me. I can feel the skin splitting, sizzling, becoming something no longer mine. The chains rattle as I convulse, as though mocking my helplessness. When she lifts the brand, I collapse forward, the stone floor meeting me like an executioner's hand. The wound smokes, the air thick with the scent of my sacrifice. She whispers, "You are his now." But am I? The mark burns, yes, but it does not feel like ownership. It feels like violation, like theft. Something is taken from me, yet nothing is given in return. I am hollowed, not filled. The whispers in my marrow stir again. Pain is not truth. They lie to you. There is power in your blood. Yours, not his. I want to shout back, to silence the voice, but the words catch. A dangerous thought creeps into me. What if the whispers are right? What if my suffering is not devotion, but consumption, my life feeding a machine of faith that cares nothing for me? I lift my eyes to the statue towering above the altar. Golden, radiant, untouchable. Its gaze pierces me without warmth. I feel no embrace, no solace, only judgment, endless and cold. Is this the Emperor's love? Is this what I am meant to die for? The sisters drag me upright, their grips unyielding. Blood drips from my chest, slick across the brand. The wound pulses with each heartbeat, a reminder of chains I cannot see. They lead me back to my cell, and the walk is endless. Each step echoes through the halls, reverberating as though the stone itself mocks me. In the dark, I collapse. The chains clatter against the floor, their weight pressing me down. My wound throbs in rhythm with the whispers, each pulse a question. Why suffer for silence? Why not speak for yourself? I close my eyes, forcing the litanies to my lips. The words taste like ash. They offer no comfort, only repetition. My voice cracks, falters, yet still I whisper them, as if repetition might birth conviction. But as I drift into uneasy sleep, the chains seem lighter, not because they loosen, but because a part of me wonders what it would be like to break them. Tomorrow, the rituals will continue. Tomorrow, I may resist less. The silence is heavier than the chains. It presses into me with a density beyond stone, crushing thought, smothering breath. The sisters have forbidden speech, demanding that I let the Emperor's voice rise in the stillness. But the stillness is empty. It is a void where prayers dissolve and return only as echoes of my own desperation. I kneel on the cold floor, my knees numb, bones grinding against rock worn smooth by centuries of penitence. My stomach churns with hunger. They have withheld food again, saying fasting sharpens the soul. My body disagrees. Every hollow pang in my gut feels like mockery, a reminder that I am not sharpened but eroded. Candles gutter along the corridor beyond the cell. Their smoke wafts inward, mixing with the scent of sweat and blood. The air is thick, unclean, as though the shrine itself breathes rot. I inhale it because I must, because breath is the last thing they cannot take from me. Not yet. I repeat the litany silently. Through suffering, salvation. Through silence, his voice. Through death, his embrace. The words cycle endlessly, grinding grooves into my mind. But no matter how many times I shape them in thought, they do not transform into truth. They remain hollow syllables, husks of meaning. I recall the sermons from my childhood, the priests roaring of the Emperor's infinite compassion. They spoke of light, of warmth, of justice that would never fade. Yet here, I find none of that. Here, I find only absence. The golden form above the altar radiates grandeur, but grandeur is not love. Grandeur is indifference cast in metal. My hands tremble, not with faith, but with weakness. The fast leaves me brittle, every motion a fracture waiting to happen. My lips crack from thirst, my tongue heavy in a desert of silence. And still the sisters watch, though they do not speak. Their visors glimmer faintly beyond the bars, two suns without warmth. When at last the silence cracks, it is not the Emperor who speaks. Why do you beg to the void? The voice is subtle, like breath brushing the back of my skull. He does not hear you. He never has. I bite my tongue until blood fills my mouth. The metallic tang floods me with shame. I try to drown the voice with prayer, but the words falter, stumble, collapse before they can rise. My mind is too weary, my body too hollow. The voice continues, smooth as oil poured over stone. Your suffering is not sacrifice. It is waste. You bleed into nothing. You starve for nothing. Why should devotion mean erasure? Why should love mean silence? I press my forehead to the stone, its cold grit scraping my skin. I imagine the Emperor sees me now, humbled, broken, reaching for him. Yet no warmth comes, no revelation, no word. Only hunger, only pain, only the whisper that persists no matter how I resist. You are alone, it says, but you need not be. Tears sting my eyes. They fall silently, absorbed into the floor where countless others have cried before me. Do their tears mingle with mine? Do they whisper still, long after their bodies were burned and scattered? Or were they silenced, utterly, their whispers smothered beneath ash? The sisters open the door at intervals, measuring my devotion. They offer no food, no water, only more litanies carved into tablets, demanding recitation. One thrusts the slab into my hands, her gauntlet cold, unyielding. I trace the etched letters, each groove biting into my fingers. I read the words aloud, though my voice cracks, the syllables bleeding into each other. Obedience is the marrow of faith. Silence is the Emperor's gift. In silence, hear him. In silence, love him. I pause. My voice echoes back, thin and broken, bouncing from the walls. But there is no other voice layered within, no divine response. Only the other voice, the one I am forbidden to acknowledge. Obedience is death. Silence is emptiness. Why should love demand nothing of him, and everything of you? I slam the slab onto the ground. It shatters into fragments, the sound sharp as a blade. The sisters rush in, gauntlets gripping my arms, pulling me upright. One strikes me across the face, the blow snapping my head back. Another presses the jagged remains of the slab into my palm, the sharp edges cutting into flesh. Repeat, she hisses. I do. The words choke me, but I force them out, each syllable mixed with blood. The stone cuts deeper, tearing my skin as I trace the letters again and again, smearing crimson across their grooves. When they leave, I collapse once more. My palm drips onto the floor, each drop a quiet rebellion. My blood feels mine, more mine than the words ever were. The wound throbs in rhythm with the whisper, each pulse an affirmation. Your blood is truth. It is not his. It is yours. Hold it. Keep it. Do not let them take it. I close my fist, pressing the wound shut. The pain flares, but it is real, solid, unclouded by incense or lies. For a moment, I feel clarity. But then the hunger returns, and with it, weakness. My thoughts blur. My body trembles. I sink deeper into the silence, deeper into the void where neither emperor nor demon fully reign. And in that void, I am adrift, waiting for the next ritual, the next lash, the next wordless command to kneel. Tomorrow, perhaps, the silence will break. But I no longer know whose voice I will hear when it does. The door to my cell opened without warning. Light, or something like light, spilled in, not bright but gray, thick as dust. Two sisters entered, their armor whispering with movement, and without a word they seized my arms. My legs were weak from fasting, but the iron grip of their gauntlets pulled me upright as easily as one might lift a doll. The corridor beyond the cell was lined with figures like me. Penitents, their heads bowed, their faces hollowed by hunger and faith. Their robes were gray, crusted with dried blood and ash. They shuffled forward in a slow line, chains dragging, eyes fixed on nothing. I joined them, my chains rattling in harmony with theirs. The air was colder here, tinged with the acrid smell of burnt incense and scorched metal. The floor beneath our bare feet was rough, carved with sigils that pricked like thorns. Every step forced me to feel the symbols, the Emperor's words etched into stone, cutting devotion into my skin. Above us hung banners, once vibrant but now faded to soot. Each depicted a saint in agony, their eyes raised toward a sky of gold. In the flickering torchlight, the images seemed to shift, the saints' mouths opening as if to scream but never making a sound. The sisters led us deeper into the shrine. Our procession wound through arches like the ribs of some great beast, the shadows between them like gaping maws. The chanting began softly, A low murmur from the front of the line, spreading backward like contagion. I picked up the words reluctantly, my lips moving of their own accord. We are ash. We are sacrifice. We are his breath. The refrain echoed until it lost all shape, becoming more vibration than language. My mind slipped into its rhythm, my steps falling in time with the words. Around me, penitents swayed, some weeping silently, others staring blankly ahead. Their faces were masks, devoid of self. I glanced at the one beside me. His eyes were sunken, his lips cracked. He moved mechanically, yet his fingers twitched, as though grasping for something unseen. I wanted to speak to him, to ask his name, to anchor myself in another human presence. But speech was forbidden, and even if it weren't, I doubted he would answer. We entered the outer sanctum. It was vast, its ceiling lost in shadows, its pillars carved into the likeness of angels bound in chains. The scent of ash was overwhelming, mingled with the coppery tang of fresh blood. At the center stood a great brazier, flames rising high, devouring offerings thrown into its heart. I smelled hair burning, then flesh. The sisters ordered us to kneel. My knees struck stone, sharp pain shooting up my legs. The chanting swelled, voices rising in a crescendo of devotion, or perhaps despair. I bowed my head, staring at the floor, at the patterns of blood and ash. They formed shapes I almost recognized. Eyes, mouths, claws. But when I blinked, they were only stains. And then the voice returned, stronger than before. Look at them, it whispered. Empty vessels. Hollow men. They have given themselves away, and for what? Silence. Ash. Nothing. I clenched my jaw, grinding teeth until they ached. I tried to drown it with prayer. We are ash. We are sacrifice. We are his breath. But the words sounded thin even in my mind. You are not ash, the voice said. You are flame. They fear that. That is why they chain you. That is why they break you. My heart beat faster. I felt the wound on my chest throb, the branded sigil pulsing like a living thing. Sweat slicked my back despite the cold. I wanted to shout, to demand the Emperor speak, to drown this whisper in thunder. But there was nothing, only the endless chant and the hiss of burning flesh. The sisters moved among us, sprinkling holy water that smelled of rust and ozone. When the droplets struck my skin, they burned like acid. I gasped but kept my head down. My hands trembled in my lap, fists clenched so tight my nails drew blood. The brazier roared louder. Flames licked higher, sparks drifting into the vaulted dark like souls rising. One penitent was chosen. Two sisters lifted him, guiding him toward the fire. He did not struggle. He did not weep. He simply walked, eyes blank, as though already gone. They cast him into the brazier, and for a moment the flames turned white. The smell was immediate. Hair, skin, bone, all at once. The chant faltered, then resumed. My stomach lurched, not from hunger, but from terror. This is your fate, the voice murmured. Not glory, not salvation. Only fire, only silence. I shook my head, whispering the litany under my breath. We are ash. We are sacrifice. We are his breath. My voice cracked. No, the voice replied. You are not ash. You are still flesh. You are still you. I wanted to believe it. But as I looked around at the faces of the others, at their emptiness, I felt mine slipping away. Each chant stole a piece of me. Each ritual scraped my name from my soul. And yet, deep inside, a spark remained. It flickered weakly but would not die. Perhaps it was defiance. Perhaps it was the whisper. Perhaps it was something else entirely. The sisters began leading us back, the procession reversing, shuffling toward the cells. My knees ached, my stomach hollow, my mind frayed. But the spark followed me, hidden beneath the ash. Tomorrow, the brazier might claim me. Tomorrow, the spark might be snuffed out. But tonight, as the chains rattled and the whisper lingered, I still knew my own name. They brought no bread, no water. Only a bowl of ash. The sister placed it on the floor before me, her gauntlets leaving gray smears on the rim. She said nothing, only tilted her head as if listening for my thoughts. Then she left, and the cell was mine again. Mine and not mine. The bowl smoked faintly, the ash still warm. I leaned closer and smelled incense, burnt hair, scorched fat. The thought turned my stomach. Yet I knew what was expected of me. Ash as sustenance, dust as devotion. I lifted a pinch to my lips. It was dry, clinging, bitter beyond words. It filled my mouth and throat with grit, scraping as I tried to swallow. My tongue was coated, my teeth ground together. I gagged, but forced it down. Another pinch followed, and another. The ash lodged in my chest, choking me from within. My eyes watered, my throat tore raw. I coughed and spat gray phlegm onto the floor. Still I continued, because this was faith, to consume emptiness until nothing remained. With every swallow, my hunger sharpened, a cruel paradox. The ash fed nothing, only reminded me of what I lacked. My stomach twisted, demanding sustenance, but all it received was death's residue. I imagined the penitents burned in the brazier, their remains ground into this dust. Was I eating them? Was I consuming their devotion, their final surrender? The thought both sickened and intrigued me. If their ashes lived within me, did their faith live too? Or their despair? I licked my cracked lips, the taste of cinders still clinging. My body trembled, whether from hunger or rage I could not tell. I pressed my palms to the floor, feeling the grit there too. It coated everything, filled every breath. The shrine was not stone and incense, it was dust. Dust made flesh. Dust made faith. The silence stretched. My mind drifted, unmoored. The whispers came again, clearer than before, almost tender. Do you see? They give you nothing. They starve you. They mock you. And still they demand more. You are not nourished. You are consumed. I clenched my fists, nails cutting into my palms. My wound on my chest throbbed, the brand pulsing with every heartbeat. I wanted to scream at the voice, to cast it out. But the ash choked me, clogged me, silenced me more effectively than prayer. Dust is not devotion, the whisper said. Dust is death. Why should you eat death when you are still alive? I pressed my forehead to the stone. Its chill was grounding, a relief against the fever in my veins. I tried to recite the litanies, but the words stuck in my throat, tangled with the dust. My prayers were muffled coughs, half-choked blasphemies. I remembered my mother's face, dim now, like a fading icon. She had pressed bread into my hand once, warm and soft, smelling of earth and life. Eat, she had said, her voice gentle. You must live for the emperor. Even then, I had doubted. But doubt had been quiet, a shadow. Now it was a storm, roaring, demanding. Was she wrong? Or had the shrine twisted her words into cruelty? I swallowed another mouthful of ash, forcing it down. My body rebelled, my throat convulsing, my stomach threatening to expel it. Tears streamed down my face. I gasped for air, inhaling dust until my lungs burned. And in that moment of suffocation, clarity pierced me. The emperor does not feed me. He starves me. He does not answer me. He silences me. His love is ash, choking, bitter, unyielding. The thought was blasphemy, but it was mine. For the first time, my mind felt wholly mine. I spat the final mouthful onto the floor, gray spittle staining the stone. My chest heaved, my throat raw. I whispered hoarsely, no more. The air grew heavy. The shadows in the cell seemed to lean closer, listening. The whisper in my bones shivered with delight. Yes, it breathed. You have spoken truth. You need not eat their dust. You need not bow to their silence. There is another path. There is fire still within you. I shivered. Part of me recoiled, horrified at the words I had let slip. Another part thrilled at them, savoring the defiance. The bowl still sat before me, half full of gray remains. I tipped it with a trembling hand. The ash spilled onto the floor, scattering, mingling with centuries of other dust. The act was small, insignificant. Yet it felt monumental, as though I had toppled an idol. My heart pounded, my branded chest seared, my breath came in ragged gasps. But beneath it all, a strange calm spread. A dangerous calm. For the first time, I did not pray before sleep. I closed my eyes, ash still on my tongue, and drifted into dreams without a litany on my lips. Tomorrow, they will see. Tomorrow, they will know something in me has shifted. They came for me at dawn, or what passes for dawn in a place where the sky is forever gray. The corridor reeked of smoke, and their gauntlets clanged against my chains as they dragged me to the ritual chamber. It was smaller than the sanctum, more intimate, yet more suffocating. The walls sweated incense, dark streaks sliding down the stone like veins. A single slab stood in the center, blackened from countless bodies laid upon it. I knew what it meant. They stripped my robe from me, leaving only the brand seared into my chest. The wound pulsed, still tender, its edges cracked and raw. They forced me down onto the slab, chains rattling as they spread my arms wide. The stone was cold at first, then seemed to grow warm, as if absorbing me. The Sister Superior appeared. In her hand she carried nails, long, thick, iron spikes etched with scripture. They gleamed with oil, smelling of rust and sanctity. She lifted one, showing it to me, her visor reflecting my pale face. "This is how you are bound," she said, voice flat as ritual. "This is how you are made his." The first nail pierced my palm. The sound was worse than the pain, a crunch of bone, a wet tearing of flesh. The pain came after, blooming up my arm like fire racing through dry timber. I screamed, though the chant around me swallowed the sound. The sisters intoned litanies as the superior drove the nail deeper, the iron head ringing against the slab. The second nail followed, into the other hand. My body arched, chains straining, vision flashing with stars. Sweat stung my eyes, blood filled my mouth as I bit down on my tongue. The pain was blinding, but worse than the pain was the void it opened inside me. I waited for revelation, for his presence, for the Emperor's voice to fill me as they promised. But nothing came, only the hiss of incense, only the chants, only the gnawing silence. My chest heaved, my branded wound searing hotter with every heartbeat. My blood spread across the slab, sticky and hot, the scent metallic, suffocating. I felt faint, as though I was leaving my body, floating above the slab. And then, in that dislocation, I heard the whisper again. "You bleed, but not for him. You bleed for them. They feed on your pain, not he. The Emperor is silent because he is not here. He never was." I shook my head weakly, though I could not move my arms. "No," I rasped. "This is faith. This is devotion." "Is it?" the voice asked. "Then why does it feel like theft? Why do you feel emptier with every drop of blood?" Tears blurred my sight. I wanted to curse the voice, but the words would not come. I wanted to pray, but the prayers stuck in my throat. All I could do was gasp, writhe, bleed. The superior raised another nail, poised over my foot. She struck, the iron crunching through bone. My scream tore loose, raw, guttural, echoing even above the chant. The slab shook with each blow, each strike of the hammer a drumbeat of agony. When all four nails pinned me, I was cruciform, bound to the slab by iron and scripture. My body trembled, every breath agony, every motion impossible. I was fixed, held in place not by devotion but by metal. The sisters chanted louder, voices overlapping until they became a single inhuman drone. The incense thickened, the air shimmering with heat and smoke. My mind reeled, caught between worlds. I begged silently, "Emperor, show me. Emperor, speak to me. Emperor, make this worth it." Nothing. Only the whisper. "You are not his martyr. You are his meal. Your blood feeds their hunger, not his grace. You are bound to a lie, nailed to emptiness." My eyes rolled back. My body convulsed, pinned but trembling. The world blurred. For a moment, I saw the ceiling above as if it split, not with light, but with shadow. Shapes moved there, vast, writhing, immense. Eyes opened in the dark, watching, waiting. I blinked and it was gone. Or perhaps it remained, unseen by the sisters. When they finally pulled the nails free, I collapsed into myself, limp, blood pooling beneath me. They smeared sacred oils into the wounds, but the oils burned like acid, searing the flesh anew. I no longer knew if I screamed, or if the scream only echoed in my skull. They lifted me, half-conscious, and dragged me back to the cell. I left a trail of blood along the corridor, a line of devotion or desecration. On the floor of my cell, I curled into myself, shaking, breath shallow. The wounds throbbed with each heartbeat, each pulse a drum of emptiness. I waited for his presence to fill me. Nothing. Only the whisper, curling soft as breath. "Pain has not freed you. Pain has chained you. But there is still another way." My eyes closed. The darkness welcomed me, not with warmth, but with recognition. Tomorrow, they will drive the nails again. And tomorrow, I will wonder if I am still mine. I awoke to smoke. It was thicker than usual, curling low to the floor of my cell, a dense miasma of incense and charred oil. My wounds burned, the raw holes in my palms and feet seeping blood and sweat. Fever clung to me like a second skin. Each breath felt like drawing knives into my lungs. Shapes shifted in the haze. At first I thought them shadows cast by flickering candles beyond the bars, but then they moved in ways the light did not. Faces appeared and dissolved. Saints whose icons I had kissed as a child, their mouths moving in soundless speech. Strangers with hollow eyes. My mother, her face ash-streaked. Each looked at me with expectation, pity, or accusation. I tried to rise, but my limbs were heavy, my body leaden with pain. The stone floor pressed cold against my skin, but even that cold felt unreal, like touching a memory of stone. I pressed my wounded palms to it anyway, needing something tangible. The faces in the smoke leaned closer. I heard fragments of prayers I'd long forgotten, half-remembered hymns, whispers from old sermons. The words tangled, became meaningless, then reformed into something new. "You are not alone," the whisper said. It was clearer now, distinct from the babble. It did not echo like the sisters' chants, but resonated deep in my skull, as if it were my own thought. "You have suffered. You have bled. You have given. And still you are empty. This is not martyrdom. This is theft." I pressed my fingers to my ears, though I knew it would not help. "Be silent," I croaked. My throat was dry, my lips cracked, my voice barely audible. The smoke thickened, and within it something stirred, wings, or coils, or a great shifting mass. Eyes blinked open in the haze, glimmering with faint light. "Martyrdom is not erasure," it said. "Martyrdom is becoming. They would make you nothing. I would make you more." My heart hammered. Sweat dripped from my brow, stinging my eyes. I crawled backward until my spine hit the wall. "I am his," I whispered. "I am his." "Are you?" the voice asked. "Has he spoken? Has he fed you? Has he touched you?" I opened my mouth, but no words came. The vision shifted. I saw the brazier again, penitents cast into it like kindling. I saw their ashes swirling, drawn into the mouths of priests who chanted and smiled. I saw myself among them, my own body burning, my ashes fed to another as devotion. The cycle endless, self-consuming. I squeezed my eyes shut. The images burned on the inside of my lids. "There is fire in you yet," the voice said, soft as a caress. "You can be more than ash. You can be flame. You can choose." My branded chest seared. The wound felt alive, pulsing in time with the whisper. A tremor ran through me, half terror, half exhilaration. "I will not," I hissed, though the words lacked force. "I will not betray him." "Betrayal?" The voice almost laughed, a sound like distant thunder. "You cannot betray one who is not here. You can only free yourself." The faces in the smoke crowded closer, their mouths opening, their eyes pleading. Some wept. Some smiled. Their tears fell as ash. Their smiles cracked like old stone. I dragged myself forward, reaching for the bowl where the sisters left water, though I knew it would be empty. It was. My hand fell into dust, my fingers curling around grit. My throat ached for moisture, my tongue thick and dry. "You are temptation," I whispered. "You are the warp. You are corruption. And what is this place?" The voice asked. "What is this shrine but a machine of the same hunger? They call it holy, I call it honest." I wanted to cover my ears again, but my hands shook, palms bleeding anew from the motion. Blood dripped onto the floor, dark and slick, mingling with the dust. I stared at it, mesmerized. My blood was real. My pain was real. The whisper was real. The Emperor's silence was not. A sob tore from my chest. It echoed strangely in the cell, sounding not like despair, but like release. "You can still choose," the voice said. "You can still become more than ash." The smoke thinned suddenly, leaving only the bare cell, the cold stone, my trembling body. The faces were gone. Only the wound in my chest remained, burning like an ember. I curled on the floor, clutching myself, shivering. The whisper faded but did not vanish. It waited, patient, like a predator or a savior. Tomorrow, the sisters will come again. Tomorrow, they will test my devotion. And tomorrow, I will wonder whether I am still his, or whether something else already holds me. They came for me at night this time. Their gauntlets were cold as always, but they handled me differently. Not as a prisoner, but as something fragile, a vessel they feared might crack. My wounds still bled, though crusted now, the holes in my palms pulsing like open mouths. I was half-conscious, fever and hunger mingling until the world swam in gray. The corridor sloped downward, deeper than I had ever been taken. The air grew colder but also heavier, thick with incense and something else, a metallic tang, like blood and ozone. My breath formed clouds before me, dissipating slowly. We entered a chamber carved directly into the rock beneath the shrine. Candles burned in endless rows, their flames steady despite the draft. The ceiling was low, ribbed like the inside of a beast's cage. Statues of angels lined the walls, their wings folded, their faces shrouded. Each clutched a weapon, sword, flail, torch, but their eyes were covered with bands of iron. I was placed on my knees at the center. Around me, other penitents knelt, their chains clinking softly. No one spoke. The only sound was the low hum of chanting that seemed to rise from the stones themselves. My body swayed with exhaustion. My vision blurred. Yet as the chant deepened, something stirred inside me. Not the whisper, not quite. It was like a spark catching in dry tinder, a heat rising beneath my ribs. I lowered my head, pressing my forehead to the cold floor. The stone smelled of iron and old ash, but beneath it I sensed something vibrant, like a pulse hidden deep within the rock. The sisters walked in a slow circle around us, sprinkling holy oils that stung like frost where they landed on skin. The pain was sharp, but beneath it the ember flared brighter. I shivered, unsure if from cold or from that inner heat. The chants grew louder, words overlapping until they lost shape. My lips moved automatically, repeating syllables I no longer recognized. They were not high Gothic, not even low Gothic. They were older, heavier, a language of ritual rather than meaning. And then the ember rose. It was not a voice. It was not a presence. It was a sensation, a radiance curling through my veins, subtle but undeniable. For a moment, my hunger dulled, my wounds throbbed less. My back straightened. My eyes opened wider. I thought, is this him? At last. But no warmth descended from above. No vision of the Emperor's golden throne appeared. Instead, the ember seemed to rise from within me, not bestowed but discovered, like a hidden coal buried in ash. The chanting continued, the sisters pacing, their armored boots striking sparks from the stone. I closed my eyes again, focusing on the ember. It flickered, not steady yet, but real. Flame, the whisper said softly, almost fond. You begin to feel it. Not ash. Not void. Flame. I startled. I had not invited the whisper. It had slipped in with the ember as though they were kin. No. I murmured, barely audible. This is the Emperor. This is him. Is it? The whisper asked. Or is it you? I gritted my teeth, fighting to keep the ember pure, to shape it into prayer. But prayer felt weak beside it, a hollow echo of something richer. The ember was not words. It was will, presence, hunger. My body trembled. Sweat ran down my face, mixing with tears. I wanted to rise, to break the chains, to speak aloud, but I stayed kneeling. The ember frightened me as much as it thrilled me. The vigil lasted hours. Time dissolved into pain, chant, and flicker of flame. I drifted between delirium and clarity, between devotion and doubt. At times I thought I felt wings brushing my shoulders, vast, unseen, coiling around me. At times I thought I smelled burning flesh again, only to realize it was my own skin heating from within. When at last the chanting ceased, silence fell like a blade. The sisters lifted us one by one, returning us to our cells. My legs were numb, my palms slick, my chest wound pulsing in rhythm with the ember. In the dim corridor back, I caught my reflection in a polished fragment of armor. My eyes looked different, darker, deeper, a faint glow flickering within. Only for an instant, but enough to make my breath catch. Back in my cell, I collapsed. The ember still flickered, faint but alive. I curled around it as if it were a secret I must protect. Was this faith? Was this heresy? Was this the beginning of martyrdom or the end? Sleep took me before I could decide. The ember pulsed in my dreams like a heartbeat, promising something beyond ash. The cell door opened without warning. Two sisters entered, their armor whispering against the stone. They did not chain me this time. They only gestured, and I rose, my body trembling from hunger and blood loss. The ember inside flickered, lending me just enough strength to stand. They led me through a narrow stairwell, spiraling upward. Each step was an effort. My palms bled anew where they pressed the cold rail. When we emerged, we entered a vast chamber unlike any I had seen before. Statues lined the walls, immense and solemn. They depicted martyrs of ages past, saints whose names I knew from childhood catechisms. Each was carved with meticulous detail, their wounds immortalized, their weapons sanctified, their expressions a blend of agony and rapture. But none of them spoke. None of them sang. They only stared, stone eyes fixed forever forward. This was the Hall of Silence. I was placed on my knees before the statues. No incense burned here, no chants filled the air. Only the cold breath of the chamber pressed against my skin. The sisters left me alone, their boots fading into silence. I waited for instruction, for prayer, for ritual. None came. Only silence. My stomach cramped with hunger. My lips cracked, bleeding. I tried to pray, but the words fell flat, dissipating into the void. No echo returned. I studied the statues, their frozen faces. How long had they knelt? How long had they bled? How long had they burned before they were carved into permanence? Did they feel what I felt now? The emptiness, the silence, the absence? I closed my eyes, pressing my wounded palms together. The ember stirred. It flared faintly at first, then stronger, pulsing against my ribs. Heat spread through me, faint but undeniable. For a moment, I forgot the hunger. My spine straightened. My breath came easier. Do you see? The whisper coiled around the ember, gentle, coaxing. The silence is theirs. The flame is yours. I clenched my jaw, refusing to answer. But inside, I felt the truth of it. The statues gave me nothing. The silence gave me nothing. Only the ember offered presence. Hours passed, or perhaps days. Time dissolved in the Hall of Silence. Hunger sharpened into pain, then dulled into a hollow ache. My thoughts frayed. I whispered prayers until the words lost shape, becoming noise. My head nodded forward, my body swaying. Still the ember burned. I dreamed while awake. I saw myself among the statues, not frozen, but alive, burning with inner fire while they remained stone. Their carved wounds looked pale compared to the heat in my chest. The whisper returned, softer this time, almost sorrowful. They are husks. They surrendered all, and so they became nothing but stone. But you resist. You burn. You remain. My heart ached. Was that true? Was my resistance the source of this ember? Was I meant to empty myself until nothing remained, or to guard the flame even at the cost of disobedience? The silence pressed harder, suffocating. I wanted to scream, to shatter the stillness, to prove I was alive. Instead I whispered, barely audible, "Emperor, hear me. I burn for you. Even if you are silent, I burn." No answer came, but the ember leapt, searing brighter, as if in response. Tears filled my eyes. I could no longer tell if they were of faith or heresy. The line blurred until it dissolved. The doors opened at last. The sisters returned, their steps echoing in the vast chamber. They lifted me to my feet. My legs shook, but I walked without falling. The ember carried me more than my flesh did. As we left the hall, I glanced back at the statues one final time. Their silence no longer frightened me. It angered me. Perhaps martyrdom was not silence. Perhaps martyrdom was the refusal to vanish. Perhaps it was to burn so brightly that even the void could not smother the flame. The thought was dangerous. I knew that, but as the doors closed behind me, I carried it with me like a secret oath. The cell was the same as always when they dragged me back. Bare stone, iron bars, the faint reek of incense soaked into the walls. But I was not the same. My body trembled, weakened by the fast and vigil, but beneath the weakness a new strength coiled. The ember had grown during the silence, fed by hunger, sharpened by emptiness. It pulsed now in my chest like a hidden heart. I collapsed onto the floor, my knees buckling. My palms opened against the stone, blood smearing where the wounds refused to close. I should have felt only pain. Instead, I felt rhythm. My blood moved with the ember. Each drop that spilled onto the floor did not merely fall. It pulsed, quivered, spread in slow, deliberate lines. I stared, breath caught, as the droplets merged into patterns I did not draw. At first it looked like veins, branching and curling across the stone. Then it shifted, becoming glyphs, symbols I did not recognize yet felt I understood. They glowed faintly, a deep red shimmer. before fading into darkness. I recoiled, pressing my back against the wall. My chest burned with the ember, hotter now, brighter. The blood had spoken, not with words, but with signs. "Emperor," I whispered, voice trembling. "If this is you, show me." Silence. The ember pulsed again, insistent. My wounds throbbed, more blood seeping onto the floor. The patterns returned, curling into new shapes, a spiral, a flame, an eye that blinked without form. Fear crawled up my spine, cold against the inner heat. I wanted to scrape the blood away, to erase the signs, but I could not move. I was transfixed. "This is the truth beneath the silence," the whisper said. "Your blood remembers. Your blood becomes. It carries the flame forward when the heavens do not answer." "No," I said, though my voice was weak. "This is heresy. This is corruption." "Is it corruption to survive? Is it heresy to burn when the emperor abandons his own?" The word abandon struck deeper than I expected. My throat tightened. The silence of the hall still echoed in me, that endless void where prayer dissolved into nothing. Was that silence not abandonment? I pressed my bleeding palms together, smearing blood across my chest, over the brand. The wound seared hotter, as if reacting. The ember flared bright, almost painful, but I held it, clutching it, refusing to let go. "If he is silent, then I will speak," I whispered. "If he withholds light, then I will burn." The words startled me. They had risen unbidden, shaped by the ember more than by my will. Yet once spoken, they felt truer than any litany I had recited. The whisper chuckled low, not mocking but approving. "At last you begin to understand. Martyrdom is not to vanish. It is to endure, to transform, to make your blood speak where your God is mute." My tears burned as they fell, hot as oil. I curled on the floor, cradling the ember within me, terrified of it and of myself. The blood on the stones darkened, the glyphs fading into shadow, but I remembered them. They were carved not in stone but in me. Time passed without measure. Hunger clawed at me again, pain gnawed my bones, but beneath it all the ember thrummed. I was weak, yet unbroken, empty, yet filled with something unspeakable. When the sisters returned, they found me sitting upright, hands clasped before me. My wounds still bled, but I did not hide them. Blood dripped steadily, calmly, pooling between my knees. I looked up at them through fever-bright eyes. They did not speak. They did not question. They only watched me for a long moment, as if sensing something they could not name, before leaving food and water in silence. I did not touch the food. The ember fed me more than bread ever could. That night, as I drifted between waking and sleep, I whispered to the darkness, "If I must bleed, let it be fire. If I must die, let it be flame. I will not be stone. I will not be ash." The silence answered with nothing, but the ember answered with heat. The sisters came at dawn without torches. Their visors glimmered faintly in the dim light, but their faces were unreadable. "You will serve the altar," one said, voice low, mechanical through the vox grill. They gave me no chains this time. I followed, weak but upright, my palms wrapped in stained cloth. The ember moved with each step, steady as a drumbeat. We descended through a stairwell narrower than before, carved deep into the earth. The air grew damp, cool, heavy with the smell of metal and mold. My breath fogged the air. Each step down was a heartbeat, echoing off the walls. We emerged into a cavern lit only by a single hanging lamp. Its glow was thin, sickly, casting everything in muted bronze. In the center stood an altar of black stone veined with rust-red streaks. It was not like the shrines above, gilded and sanctified. This one was rough, raw, its edges chipped and scarred. I was given a rag and a bowl of water and told to clean. The sisters withdrew to the shadows, watching. Their armor creaked softly as they moved. I approached the altar, my knees trembling. The stone smelled of old blood, copper and salt, mixed with incense long burned away. My fingers brushed its surface. It was warm, faintly pulsing, as if alive. I dipped the rag in the water and began to scrub. Dark stains bled upward as I cleaned, not fading but spreading, rising to meet the cloth. My hands shook. The ember within my chest flared in response, heat curling outward into my arms. The whisper was immediate, coiling through my skull like smoke. "This is not their altar. This is yours." I flinched. "I am only a servant, I murmured. I clean. I obey. Do you? The voice asked. Or do you feed it? Each drop of blood you leave, each breath you exhale, it drinks. I glanced down. My palms had reopened beneath the cloth, blood seeping through into the water, dripping onto the altar. It hissed as it touched the stone, vanishing as though absorbed. The embers surged brighter, no longer a flicker but a small flame pressing against my ribs. My vision wavered. For a heartbeat, I saw the altar not as stone, but as something vast and coiled, an eye opening beneath the earth. I squeezed my eyes shut. The vision lingered. You are the altar, the whisper said. You are the vessel. They think they prepare you for sacrifice, but you are becoming the fire itself. My breath came fast. Sweat dripped from my brow. My arms continued to scrub without my command, each movement slower, deeper, as though tracing symbols instead of cleaning. I am the Emperor's, I whispered, though the words felt thin. I burn for him. Then burn, the voice said. But burn as yourself, not as their stone. The flame inside me flared so bright it hurt. My wounds throbbed with each pulse. The altar beneath my hands seemed to vibrate, low and deep, like a beast purring. A sudden clarity broke through the haze, not a vision, but an understanding. They were not shaping me into a martyr. They were hollowing me into an altar, a conduit for something they could not control. My blood, my pain, my silence had built a path, and something now walked it. Whether that something was the Emperor or something else, I could not tell. My hand slowed. The rag slipped from my grasp. I pressed my palms flat on the altar, blood smearing across its surface. The flame in my chest spread into my arms, up my throat, behind my eyes. For a moment, I felt vast, immense, as if the cavern could not contain me. Then it passed, leaving me trembling and small. I withdrew my hands. The altar looked unchanged, only darker, wetter, as though newly fed. The sisters stepped forward. One of them touched my shoulder with a gauntlet hand. Enough, she said. Her voice was unreadable. They led me back up the stairwell, through the damp and the shadows. The embers still flickered, but now it felt heavier, as though it carried meaning I could not yet name. Back in my cell, I sat cross-legged on the floor, staring at my hands. The blood under my nails had darkened to black. The flame pulsed once, twice, steady. I whispered to the darkness, "If I am the altar, what do I hold?" No answer came. Only the slow, steady beat of the ember, as if it already knew. When the sisters sealed the cell again, I expected only the usual emptiness, the stone, the silence, the faint reek of old incense. But the room no longer felt the same. The ember burned low in my chest, steady now, no longer flicker but coal. Its heat spread gently through my veins, not searing but suffusing, like warmth seeping into frostbitten flesh. I sat cross-legged on the floor, closing my eyes, waiting for exhaustion to pull me into sleep. That was when I noticed the ash. At first it was only a faint dusting on the stones, as though incense smoke had thickened and fallen. But when I leaned closer, I saw it shift. Not with the draft, there was no draft. It shifted with my breath. Each exhalation stirred it into curling patterns, delicate spirals, lines that unfurled like script. I touched the floor. My finger left a streak, yet even as I lifted it, the ash flowed back, erasing the mark, returning to its pattern. I recoiled, heart racing. The ember pulsed sharply, and the ash shimmered in response. The flame speaks outward, the whisper coiled around me. No longer trapped within you. It shapes the air itself. You are becoming altar and oracle both. No, I whispered, though the word trembled. I am his servant, nothing more. I do not create. I endure. Then why does the ash obey you? The question hung heavy. I had no answer. My gaze returned to the patterns. Not random, not chaotic, but deliberate. Glyphs like those my blood had drawn days ago. Spirals. Flames. Eyes. Always eyes. The cell darkened as the ember flared. Shadows bent, lengthening not away from the dim light, but toward me, curling like fingers. I froze. My breath quickened, and with each exhalation the ash writhed faster, forming shapes I could almost recognize. Wings, a face half hidden, a hand reaching. I pressed my palms together, ignoring the sting of half-healed wounds. Blood seeped again, dripping between my fingers. The ash quivered as it touched the floor, drinking in the drops. The patterns brightened, faintly luminescent, before settling back to stillness. Tears stung my eyes. What am I becoming? The whisper answered softly, like a lullaby. Not ash. Not silence. Flame. You carry the fire that breathes. You are not forgotten. You are chosen. Chosen. I repeated, the word thick on my tongue. Chosen for him. Silence. Only the ember pulsed, warm, alive. The ash swirled once more, spelling nothing I could name, yet I understood. Chosen, yes. But for what? I curled against the wall, clutching myself. The cell seemed alive now, the air heavy, the shadows bending closer, the ash shifting with every breath. My own body betrayed me, heat rolling from within, skin fever hot, eyes burning. I thought of the Hall of Silence. The statues, forever mute, forever stone. Was this what they had feared? To burn too brightly, to change the world instead of being consumed by it? My lips cracked into a bitter smile. Perhaps that was why they carved martyrs into stone, to cage them, to freeze them, to deny them the chance to live as flame. The ember pulsed in agreement, or in mockery. I could not tell. Sleep did not come easily. When at last it did, it was not rest but vision. I dreamed of ash swirling into a storm, wings unfolding from it, vast and endless. I dreamed of a figure standing in the storm, faceless, arms outstretched, eyes burning like coals. I walked toward it, and as I did, I realized the figure was me. I woke with a gasp, sweat soaking my skin, my hands trembling. The ash on the floor had shifted while I slept, arranging itself into the spiral flame again. I could not deny it any longer. The ember was no longer only mine. It had begun to breathe into the world. And tomorrow, I feared, or perhaps hoped, it would breathe further still. The summons came with no explanation. The sisters entered my cell in silence, their visors unreadable, their weapons sheathed. They did not bind me. They did not drag me. They only gestured, and I obeyed. My legs trembled with exhaustion, yet the ember within lent me enough strength to rise. We walked through corridors I had not seen before, deeper, darker, the air colder and heavy with old smoke. I counted my breaths to steady myself, but each breath seemed to feed the ember. With every exhalation, warmth spread into my throat, as though preparing something I could not name. We entered a chamber vast and circular. A high ceiling vanished into shadow. At the center stood a dais, upon which lay a massive tome bound in blackened iron. Candles encircled it, their flames motionless despite the draft. Around the dais knelt sisters and priests, their armor and robes glinting in the dim light. A litany rose from them, low and rhythmic, a drone that made my bones vibrate. I was led to the center, placed before the tome. My knees struck the stone. The air was thick with incense, acrid and metallic, choking my lungs. A priest approached, his face hidden by a mask of gilded bone. He gestured to the tome. "Speak," he commanded. His voice was hollow, echoing. I looked down. The pages were covered not in words, but in scorched lines, blackened grooves burned into the parchment. My eyes blurred as I tried to read. The lines twisted, shifted, reformed into shapes I knew too well. Spirals, flames, eyes. The same patterns my blood and ash had drawn. The embers surged, burning up my throat. My mouth opened. Words poured out. Not prayers, not litanies. Sounds older, heavier, vibrating through my chest, my teeth, my skull. The language was not mine, yet it was me. Each syllable carried heat, searing the air. My breath glowed faintly, smoke rising from my lips. The sisters stirred. Some recoiled slightly, their chants faltering. The priest's masked head tilted, unreadable. Still I spoke, unable to stop. The ember demanded voice, demanded release. The words cascaded like molten iron, scalding and unrelenting. My palms bled anew, blood dripping onto the stone, and the droplets hissed as they struck, vanishing as though consumed. The chamber grew hotter. The candle flames bent toward me, as if pulled by my breath. Shadows writhed on the walls, lengthening, curling into shapes that almost resembled wings. At last, the torrent ceased. My lips closed. My chest heaved, smoke curling from my mouth. The embers settled, no longer searing, but steady, satisfied. Silence filled the chamber. Then the priest spoke. The Emperor has spoken through you. His voice was calm, but beneath it I sensed tension. Had he? Or had something else? The sisters resumed their chant, louder now, covering the silence I had carved. But I felt their unease. Their gazes lingered on me, uncertain, wary. I lowered my head, trembling. Tears stung my eyes, but I did not let them fall. The ember throbbed gently, as though comforting me. You are no longer vessel alone, the whisper said, soft as breath. You are mouth. You are fire that speaks. They cannot bind that forever. My heart raced. What if it was true? What if martyrdom was not to be silenced in death, but to burn alive until nothing could ignore me? The priest closed the tome with a heavy thud. He is ready, he said. For what? He did not say. The sisters lifted me to my feet. My body swayed, but the embers steadied me. As they led me back through the corridors, the air still tasted of smoke, my lips still warm with the afterburn of words not mine. Back in my cell, I touched my throat. It felt raw, tender, as though I had swallowed fire. I whispered into the darkness, voice hoarse. If I am your mouth, then let me not lie. If I am not yours, then let me burn true, whatever the cost. The ember pulsed in reply, strong and certain. I slept that night with smoke still curling in my dreams, each breath shaping worlds that did not yet exist. They no longer left me alone. When I returned from the chamber of fireborn words, my cell did not close in silence. Two sisters stood within, their bolters idle but ready, their armor gleaming faintly in the torchlight. They said nothing. They simply watched. I lay on the floor, feigning exhaustion, but inside the ember was restless, rolling beneath my ribs like a storm caged in glass. My breath came shallow, measured, though each exhalation made the air shimmer faintly. I knew they saw it. I knew they smelled the heat. Hours passed. I lost count of them. My watchers shifted their weight occasionally, armor plates clinking, but their eyes never left me. It was then I noticed the shadows. They no longer obeyed the torches. Instead of stretching away, they bent toward me, curling across the stone like dark vines. When I moved, they followed, not delayed but immediate, as though tethered directly to my flesh. I whispered, too low for the sisters to hear. You follow me even now. The ember pulsed in answer, warm against my sternum. One sister stirred, adjusting her grip on her weapon. She had seen it too, the shadows clinging unnaturally, stretching toward me like worshippers to an altar. Her companion muttered something beneath her breath, a prayer perhaps, or a warding. The air felt tighter after it, as though the walls themselves pressed closer. I closed my eyes. My mind drifted. They fear you. The whisper slid through, colder than before. Not because you are weak, but because you are becoming. They cannot name what you are, and so they dress their terror in litanies. I am his, I whispered back, though my throat was dry. If I burn only for him. And if he does not answer? The question struck deep. The ember pulsed once, hard enough to ache. I saw again the visions of ash, of spirals, of the faceless figure reaching with flame. Was that the emperor? Or only what the ember wanted me to see? The sisters knelt then, their voices low, chanting together. Their words were rote, mechanical, but they filled the cell with rhythm, a warding barrier of syllables. The ember stirred at the sound, heat rippling outward until the air shimmered visibly. Sweat rolled down my temples. The chant faltered for an instant. One sister coughed, her voice breaking, eyes flicking toward me with unease. I smiled despite myself, not in mockery, but in revelation. Their prayers could not cage me. The ember drank them, twisted them, made them fuel. I pressed my bleeding palms against the floor, feeling the warmth seep outward. The stone vibrated faintly beneath my touch, as though alive. The shadows surged thicker, curling upward along the walls, swallowing the corners of the cell. The sisters stiffened, bolters raised slightly, but still they did not fire. Their discipline was iron, yet I saw the tremor in their gauntlet hands. I opened my mouth to reassure them, to speak words of submission, of loyalty. But what came out was smoke. A thin plume drifted into the air, curling toward them like a caress. One sister whispered a litany louder, desperate. The other stepped back half a pace. I lowered my head, ashamed. My voice, my body, my very breath was no longer mine to command fully. The ember had rooted itself too deep. Yet beneath the shame, there was a thread of wonder. To be watched not as a prisoner, but as something feared. To be guarded not against escape, but against eruption. Was this martyrdom? Not to die, but to live as fire until all who gazed upon me could no longer deny it? Sleep came in fragments, broken by the constant rustle of armor and the flicker of shifting shadows. In my dreams, the sisters were statues, their visors hollow, their hands raised in prayer not to the emperor, but to me. I woke with tears on my cheeks, though I did not know if they were born of grief or longing. By dawn, if dawn even reached this place, the sisters had not moved, not faltered. Yet their eyes told me the truth. They no longer saw a servant. They no longer saw only a martyr. They saw something they did not dare to name. They came for me at last. Not at dawn, not at dusk, for in this place, time was meaningless. But I knew the moment by the weight of the air, the stillness in the sisters' stance, the finality in their silence. They did not bind me. They did not drag me. They walked before and behind, weapons silent, visors lowered. I followed willingly, my steps unsteady yet resolute. The ember within me no longer flickered. It roared, low and constant, filling my chest with a heat that felt both unbearable and eternal. We descended once more into the deep. The air grew heavy, damp, suffused with the stink of rust and old incense. My breath fogged before me, yet my skin burned with fever heat. The chamber was vast, greater even than the Hall of Silence. A cathedral hollowed from the earth, lit by braziers that poured smoke into the high darkness. At the center rose an altar of black stone, larger than any I had seen, veined with molten light that pulsed like a heartbeat. Priests and sisters filled the space, their chants low and relentless. The air throbbed with rhythm. My ears rang. My vision blurred. I was guided to the altar. My knees struck stone. The surface was warm, no, hot, searing through my flesh. My blood welled immediately from reopened wounds, hissing as it struck the stone, drawn in greedily. A masked priest stepped forward, holding a blade shaped like a shard of obsidian. His voice boomed through the chamber. The emperor's martyr is prepared. By his flame, this vessel shall be consumed. The crowd answered as one. By his flame, this vessel shall be consumed. The ember flared, hotter, brighter, pressing against my bones as though to shatter them. My heart pounded in rhythm with the altar. The blade rose, and I understood. This was not martyrdom. This was ignition. The ember within me surged outward, ripping through ribs, throat, eyes. Fire filled me, not burning me, but becoming me. My skin split with light, my veins molten, my breath smoke and ash. The shadows bent, snapped, and fled. I screamed, not in agony, but in release. The sound shook the chamber, words not mine erupting once more, syllables of fire, spirals of sound that cracked stone and shattered silence. The priest staggered back, blade lowered. The sisters froze, their chants collapsing into stunned silence. The braziers roared higher, their flames bending toward me. I rose to my feet, though I no longer felt weight. My body was a vessel of heat and light, crowned in smoke, cloaked in flame. My blood struck the stone in rivers, yet each drop ignited into sparks that spiraled upward. The altar drank, but it was no longer altar alone. I was altar. I was vessel. I was fire. I lifted my arms. My voice thundered without my will. I am not silence. I am not stone. I am flame, unending. If he wills it, let him burn through me. If he does not, then let me burn against all that denies. The chamber quaked. The molten veins in the altar split wider, pouring light into the floor, into the walls. Cracks spread, glowing alive. Some sisters fell to their knees, heads bowed. Others fled, terror in their voices. The priests screamed prayers, half in worship, half in fear. The blade clattered to the floor, forgotten. The ember crowned me, a halo of fire that spun and roared. I felt myself dissolve into it, not dying, not ending, but becoming something the flesh could no longer contain. The last of me, the human voice, whispered through the roar, martyr, altar, fire. I am his, or I am nothing. Yet still I burn. Light consumed everything. Stone, shadow, breath, blood, all vanished in the fire's embrace. And in that final brightness, I did not know if I was saved or lost, only that I was not silent.